The lies of the Linux community never cease. Whether it's telling you that Linux is the promised land, it's full of freedom, they give you options like Debian and stability and never crashing again, or the lightning fast pace and rolling releases of CashOS. They're on Arch, by the way, that makes it better. These people continue to tell us that this fucking operating system, this kernel, gives us the opportunity to have everything that we've ever wanted. But the options that you get, the choice that you get, the 5,000 Reddit posts, the different forums, all of the documentation you have to go through to climb through is something that cripples your choice. And then you're given something like a Linux Mint that is a perfect, beautiful little melding in the middle that just seems too good to be true. These things and more are why switching to Linux is one of the things that can be the most terrifying experience of your computing life. And in this video, I want to talk about how you can sift through the noise and finally understand what you want to do in computing. Let's get started. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Linux and I use it every single day, but there's something about joining the Linux community and doing all of the things that you need to do to get a distro up and running is harrowing work. We've spent our entire lives being conditioned on 2 operating systems and being told this is how you will compute for the rest of your life. We spend education, we spend downtime, we spend time with our friends bonding with these operating systems. To move from Linux and Windows is to cut out a piece of your knowledge base and to continue working on a skill that you had honed for decades. For a lot of these people, and working especially with new mobile operating systems like Android and iOS, conditioning you out of the way that you compute is extremely difficult. And when you're blessed with all of the different options with Linux choice, and all of the people who have very deep opinions about different Linux distros, it is impossible for you to make a decision. And with every different site giving you a different opportunity, Gemini giving you different results, the amount of times that you prompt it, and people yelling at you before you even taken a step, it is impossible to make these decisions. And when you see 2 polar opposite distros, like a Debian versus a CashOS, you don't know where you lie on the spectrum. You have to reanalyze everything about being a computer user. And I think that's what this video is trying to solve. It's trying to give you an easier decision when choosing a distro, trying to kind of force you into a little bit of an archetype, or at least force you to understand what your computing needs are and where you should start looking and what types of distros you should start looking for. I use Debian as an example because I've been using Debian because I rely on its stability for being able to just show up to my computer, do the things that I want to do with my computer, and go about my day. I spend my entire day as an IT professional tinkering with different setups and building different things, fixing what breaks. And I'm over it. I really just want to focus on going home, relaxing, booting up a game, making a YouTube video, hanging out with my community on live, and just using it like anybody else would use a computer. I don't want to boot in and be an IT professional. And Debian stability is great for that. But there are specific needs, especially in the content creation space and different types of app development, where being on the bleeding edge, being on a CashOS is important. Being able to have a rolling release distro with our space and do something at a deeper, more thoughtful level on computing hardware is extremely important as well. Having these options is a benefit to us, but at the end of the day, I understand that all of these things can be confusing. And then you have things like Linux Mint. Linux Mint is just there to be there. You're a computer. You boot in, you log in, it looks kind of like Windows with the Cinnamon desktop environment, and it just works. It holds your hand, it has beautiful help tools, the documentation for it is limitless, and it's built on Ubuntu, which is built on Debian, and they just work. They just do what they gotta do. The kernel is packaged into this beautiful little operating system that feels just like how you were trained in school, just how you've done Windows and Mac OS, and there are still tweakable things about it, but it just works. And depending on how you look at the computing world is going to depend on what distro you need. I chose Debian for its stability and its reliability across servers. I use Debian because I don't want to learn a new package manager and I know it. It's RPD or RDP or something like that. It's not RDP, that's Remote Desktop Protocol. Anyway, I don't want to learn a new package manager. I don't want to learn Pacman. I don't want to learn whatever Fedora uses. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I've learned apt, I'm done with it. And at the end of the day, that's just kind of the things that you need to be willing to figure out. You need to be determining in a VM or on a tester laptop what you like to use and what you use your computer for. Is this distro capable of that? Scrap it, move to something else. Don't put it on your system, don't dual boot until you're ready. Make these decisions in trial areas, make these decisions in virtual machines, make these decisions by watching YouTube videos and understanding actually what you use on a daily basis. For me, it's simple. I need to be able to create content, I need to be able to game, and I need to be able to communicate with my friends and have a little bit of the synchronization that I have out of Google Chrome. And yes, I know, I'm a Linux user that uses Google Chrome. It's about as far away from what most Linux users will tell you to do. But I like the simplicity of being able to put my entire life in an ecosystem and have all of those things sync between each other, and Google Chrome runs great on Linux. And I can have all of my docs and all of my drives and all of my photos and all of that stuff conveniently put together in a Google environment and sync with my Android device. And being able to have Steam boot up a good chunk of my library. There's obviously that whole trope that you've been told your entire life that kernel level anti-cheat bad, and I agree with them, but it is sad to not being able to boot up most AAA titles and play multiplayer games online with your friends. It's hard to let some of those things go, and do you have a console that you can fall back on to play some of those games with your friends? And if not, are you willing to give them up? And then content creation is its own whole rabbit hole. Me finally being able to figure out DaVinci Resolve on my Debian desktop install in KDE is the greatest achievement of my life, and it felt fucking awesome to do it. But there were like weeks before that where I was devastated that I had to learn a new video editor, that I had to download Kdenlive and try and figure my life out, and it made me want to die. Now, I've been pivoting off of graphic tools like Photoshop and Lightroom and all of these other things, so I was willing to go and try Darktable, and I was down to go and try Inkscape and Affinity and see if I could get that running with Wine and interact with all of these fun new tools that I get to have in translation layers that you don't really see on other operating systems. It piqued the part of the interest that got me into the IT career in the first place, but it didn't feel like fixing a 30-second password reset for the 800th time that day. It's how you're willing to interact with your computer that's the biggest piece to understanding. I don't have the answer for you. This video was not to solve all of your problems. This video was to give you a lens into trying to understand how you use your computer. It always depends. And yes, some people will tell you that, and I'm the 30,000th other video that's told you this, but really think, really test before you go distro hopping. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna give up on Linux like everybody else did if you spend your primary workstation distro hopping. If you try and convert your Mac to be able to run some Linux distro, or you try and use your main computer that you just built to play games with your friends and start dual booting, you will be sad and you will leave. And I think macOS and Windows are doing enough now that we really need to have an actual conversation with ourselves about switching off of a platform that manipulates us. And I think Linux is a place where, yes, you have the freedom and the choice can be scary, but if you do it right, if you really think about it, if you understand your computing philosophy, you will succeed. Now, obviously, I've pissed off a lot of people in this video. I'm sorry in advance for making Linux seem terrifying, but I think all of you are going to have opinions about what you should do in the comment section down below. So go ahead and do some little doobly-doo engagement. Some of you are going to hit the dislike button just out of spite. I respect that. But if you hit the like, I'd like you to. And subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'm trying to pivot this entire channel specifically to tech and gaming, and it's like, oh yeah, the most overpopulated part of YouTube. Good idea, Alex. No. I think I have some insight that I think maybe you could give one tiny little fuck about. And if you want to be a part of this community where we actually have honest conversations about most computing hardware, go ahead and start hitting that subscribe button. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you in the next one.